Have you ever felt like no matter how much you change your life, something still feels off? You move to a new place, start a new job, surround yourself with better people, but somehow a familiar pattern keeps returning. It's almost as if there's a role you've been playing your whole life, without even realizing it. I once had a friend, we'll call him David. David was the kind of person who always chased the next big project. New startup ideas, new adventures, new places to live. But after the excitement faded, he'd feel trapped again, empty, restless. He kept saying, "Why do I always ruin things when they finally start working?" For years, he thought something was wrong with him. Until one day, he discovered a concept in psychology that finally made sense of everything: the archetype. A deep pattern inside each of us that silently shapes our choices, relationships, even our dreams. This isn't some mystical horoscope. It's part of Jungian psychology, a framework that has helped writers, leaders, and even entire cultures understand human nature on a deeper level. In today's video, I'm going to help you see which archetype may be running your life. Not just the beautiful parts, but also the hidden shadow that might be holding you back. Because once you recognize it, you can finally stop repeating old patterns and start living a life that actually feels like your own. So take a moment. Pause everything else. This next 20 minutes might just change the way you see your entire story. The hidden script. Why you keep reliving the same story. What if the biggest decisions in your life weren't really made by you? Think about it. Why do some people always end up with emotionally unavailable partners? Others keep leaving jobs right before they succeed. And no matter how many times they try to change, the ending is always the same. It's like life keeps putting you in a loop. Same lesson, different faces. One girl wrote to me last year and said, "I've dated 4 completely different guys, different personalities, even different countries, but every relationship ended the same. Me feeling invisible, like I don't matter. At first, I thought I just had bad luck, but it felt deeper than that, almost like I was programmed for this." That line hit me, because I've seen it over and over again, in my own life too. We think we're choosing freely, but sometimes we're just acting out a role we never knew we were given. Psychologists call this an archetypal script, a kind of inner character that lives inside you and quietly guides your choices. It's not your personality, it's not your past trauma alone. It's something older, deeper, almost mythic. You didn't choose this role consciously. It's been forming since childhood, through what inspired you, what scared you, what stories you connected with the most. And until you name that character, it often keeps writing the same chapter of your life over and over, like my friend Sarah. No matter how perfect a job looked, she'd suddenly feel trapped and leave. People thought she was irresponsible. The truth? She was an explorer. Freedom was her oxygen. A corner office felt like a cage, even if it came with stability and praise. The real lesson here? Most of us aren't broken. We're just living out a script we never knew we were following. And the moment you finally name it, everything starts to make sense. So if you've been wondering why certain patterns follow you everywhere, stay with me. Because before we learn how to change the story, we need to understand where these stories even come from. Which takes us back to one mysterious name in psychology, Carl Jung and the 12 Archetypes. 2. The origin of archetypes, Carl Jung and the psychology of patterned behavior. So let's go back to the source. Who came up with this idea of inner characters? And why does it feel so true even across different cultures and generations? The answer is a Swiss psychiatrist named Carl Jung. He believed that beneath all our differences, culture, nationality, personality, there are deeper patterns buried in the collective human psyche. He called them archetypes. They're not just types of people. They are universal energies, inner characters, that show up in myths, religions, films, even our dreams, over and over again, in every culture. Think about it. Why does every society have a hero figure? A wise elder? A rebellious outsider? A nurturing mother? These aren't just storytelling tools. Jung believed they're reflections of something real inside us. In the US, you see it everywhere in pop culture. Marvel movies? That's the hero archetype. Disney princesses? Often the innocent. The Joker, a twisted version of the jester. Oprah? A mix of sage and caregiver. These stories resonate with millions of people, not because they're original, but because they awaken something ancient in our psyche. That's why you can watch a movie from Japan or Brazil or Germany and still feel what the characters represent, even if you don't speak the language. Archetypes are emotional truth wrapped in story. So when we talk about finding your archetype, we're not putting you in a box. This is not a personality quiz or a label to limit you. It's more like discovering the hidden pattern that has been driving your desires, your fears, the roles you're drawn to play. And this isn't just about one type. Jung said we often have a primary archetype, the one that feels like home, a secondary one that supports or conflicts with it, and our shadow archetype, the part we deny, suppress, or project onto others. Once you understand how these forces work inside you, your life starts making sense at a completely new level. You begin to see why you repeat certain mistakes and why certain opportunities never felt right, even if they looked perfect on paper. This part is important. Archetypes are neutral. They each have a light side, full of purpose, and a shadow side, full of distortion and pain. That's why two people with the same archetype can live completely different lives. One empowered, one self-destructive. And that's exactly what we're about to explore. But before we dive into all 12 archetypes, I don't want this to feel like a list from a psychology textbook. So instead, I'm going to bring them to life through stories, real human energies, starting with 3 of the most common ones in our generation. 3. Light and shadow. Each archetype has 2 faces. Now here's where it gets real. Jung didn't say archetypes are good or bad. He said they're like pure energy, and energy can heal or destroy depending on how conscious you are of it. Every archetype carries 2 faces, a light side, full of purpose, strength, beauty, and a shadow side, the distorted form of that same energy, usually born from fear, ego, or pain. It's kind of like sunlight. With awareness, it grows life. Without awareness, it burns. Take the hero, for example. In its light form, courage, bravery, sacrifice, protecting others. In shadow, obsessed with winning, addicted to conflict, crushing everyone who doesn't agree, all in the name of saving people. Or take the lover, light, intimacy, connection, beauty, empathy. Shadow, jealousy, obsession, addiction to validation, manipulation in the name of love. Here's the scary part. Most of us don't realize when we're in the shadow version. We still think we're helping, loving, or protecting. But underneath, it's driven by fear or by our own ego. I've met people who thought they were the caregiver because they always helped everyone, but they were actually controlling others through guilt, afraid of being abandoned. That's not light. That's shadow wearing a friendly mask. Lesson? Your archetype isn't dangerous, only the unconscious version is. When you're aware of it, you can channel its light. When you're unaware, it often becomes your downfall. And that's what makes this journey powerful and uncomfortable. Because to truly know your archetype, you also have to face its shadow. But don't worry, we're going to take it one step at a time. Instead of giving you a dry list of all 12 archetypes like a textbook, I want to bring them to life, the way they actually show up in people's lives. So let's start with 3 of the most common energies of our generation, and I'll show you both their beautiful side and their shadow. 4. The explorer, the lover, the sage. 3 personal stories that might be you. Let's bring this to life. I want you to listen to these 3 stories and notice if any of them feel a little too familiar. They're not just characters, they might be reflections of you. The explorer. There's a guy I know named Jake. Every year he buys a new backpack and disappears into another country. He's brilliant, could easily have a stable career. And yet the moment things get predictable, he leaves. People say he's running away from life, but actually, adventure is his life. Light side. He inspires others to break out of the box, discover new ideas, new cultures, new ways of living. Shadow side. He avoids responsibility, sabotages stability, or becomes addicted to the next new thing, never finishing what he starts. If you've always felt suffocated by routine and freedom feels more important than safety, there's a good chance this archetype lives inside you. The lover, then there's my friend Anna. She loves love. Music moves her. Poetry, connection, intimacy. It's like she was born to feel deeply. When she loves someone, she makes them feel alive again. But when she feels unwanted, she crumbles. She overgives. She loses herself trying to be what the other person needs. Light side, deep connection, beauty, empathy, healing through intimacy. Shadow side, jealousy, emotional dependence, using affection as manipulation, losing identity for love. If your heart breaks more intensely than others, if beauty and emotion are the oxygen you breathe, you may carry the lover, the sage, and then there's the person who's always searching for truth. My friend Marcus reads more than most people breathe. Philosophy, psychology, spirituality. He can explain any concept with depth and wisdom. People come to him for clarity. Light side, guides others, seeks truth, inspires awakening. Shadow side, overthinking, judging others, hiding behind knowledge, or using truth as a weapon to feel superior. Sages often feel like outsiders, not because they don't belong, but because their minds live in a different dimension. These three energies are powerful and beautiful, but remember, none of them are perfect. If you recognized yourself in one of those stories, stay with me, because that's not a coincidence. In the next part, we're going to look at how these archetypes and others get manipulated in modern society by marketing, politics, and systems that know how to use your deepest archetypal cravings against you. 5. Archetypes in the modern system, how society uses them to control you. Now, here's the part most people never realize. These archetypes are not just personal patterns. Society has learned how to use them against you. Because if someone understands what drives you at a deeply unconscious level, they don't need to control you with force. They just need to speak to your archetype, especially its shadow. Marketing and consumerism. If you're an explorer, they sell you freedom, expensive vacation packages, new gadgets, quit your job and travel ads. The corporate world loves this, because while you feel like a rebel, you're still consuming the products they sold you. If you're a lover, everything becomes about beauty, romance, desire, image. They design social media to keep you craving likes, a digital form of affection, so you never feel truly enough. If you're a hero, they weaponize your courage. Join the fight. Protect your country. Buy this to support the cause. It feels noble, but often benefits huge systems you didn't even question. Politics and culture. Politicians use archetypes all the time. They know the public adores the hero archetype, so they paint themselves as saviors. They rely on the innocent archetype to spread blind patriotism. They attack opponents using the shadow rebel. They just want chaos. We bring order. They don't need to change who you are. They just trigger the part of your archetype that's easiest to manipulate. Why it matters. This is why some of the most creative people end up feeling empty, the most loving people feel used, and the most courageous people die for causes they don't even believe in. It's not because they chose the wrong archetype. It's because their shadow was hijacked. Most people never notice this. They just feel tired, trapped, or exploited, and blame themselves. But the good news is, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to reclaim your archetype and use it consciously, not as a consumer, but as a creator of your own life. And that brings us to the next step. How do you actually discover which archetype is running your life, and whether you're living its light or trapped in its shadow? In the next part, I'm going to give you a simple way to start identifying your primary archetype, including 5 reflection questions and a mini self-test you can do right now. 6. Identify your archetype. 5 reflection questions quick test. Alright, so how do you actually figure out which archetype is living inside you? You don't need a fancy quiz. Sometimes truth begins with the right questions. Grab a notebook or just pause and think deeply as I read these out loud. 5 reflection questions. As a child, what kind of stories or characters were you obsessed with? What pattern keeps repeating in your life, no matter how much you try to change the situation? What gives you energy even when you're exhausted? And what drains you instantly, even if it's supposed to be good? What kind of people trigger you the most, and why? Sometimes what bothers you is a hidden shadow of your own archetype. What pain do you secretly keep recreating, but deep down it feels familiar, almost comfortable? A quick self-scan. Now take a moment and be radically honest. If freedom and new experiences have always mattered more to you than success or stability, you might be an explorer. If connection and beauty matter more than logic or achievement, you might carry the lover. If your life revolves around understanding, wisdom, truth, even if it means feeling detached from others, that's the sage energy. If you've always felt like you need to protect, serve, fix, or save, you may carry the hero or caregiver. And if you get angry at injustice and feel a need to break things that feel wrong, there's a rebel in you. You don't have to choose right away, just let these energies sink in. Most people have one primary archetype, the one that feels like home, and one or two supporting patterns. The more honest you are with your answers, the clearer it becomes. The moment of healing begins when the moment you recognize your archetype is not when you fix everything, but when you finally stop blaming yourself. You'll realize, oh, this is why I always do that. I'm not crazy, I'm not broken, I'm just living a pattern I never named. And that moment of awareness, that's the beginning of freedom. But remember, awareness is only half the journey, because even if you discover your archetype, there's still a hidden part of it that could be controlling you without your permission. And that part is what Jung called the shadow. 7 shadow work, how to spot the dark side controlling your life. So now you've started to see which archetype might be running your story. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The part of the archetype that causes the most damage is usually the part you don't see. That's the shadow. It's the hidden, distorted version of your gift, the part created by fear, trauma, or ego. It's not there to punish you, but if you ignore it, it will sabotage everything you try to build. What shadow feels like real life? The hero who secretly needs to be admired, otherwise they feel useless. The caregiver who helps everyone, but becomes bitter when no one appreciates them. The lover who gives all their love, but ends up emotionally manipulating others without realizing it. The sage who uses knowledge to judge people instead of helping them grow. Shadow is not evil. It's just the part of your archetype that hasn't been loved, healed, or made conscious. How to spot your shadow? Ask yourself, what do I judge most fiercely in others? Sometimes that's what we're refusing to see in ourselves. Where do I feel the biggest overreaction? If something triggers you intensely, it's probably connected to your shadow. What part of me do I try hard to hide from the world? That's where shame lives, and shadow grows inside shame. Example, Marcus the Sage. Remember Marcus, the wise sage guy? When he was in his light, he shared truth and helped people find clarity. But when he felt insecure, he hid behind big words, corrected everyone, and looked down on people who were less educated. He wasn't trying to be arrogant, he was just afraid of being irrelevant. That's how shadow works. It disguises itself as protection. Why this matters: shadow isn't there to destroy you. It's there to be integrated, to teach you what still needs healing. The moment you face your shadow, you stop being controlled by it. And suddenly, your archetype becomes a source of strength, not sabotage. 8. Rewriting the script. Integrating archetypes for life purpose. Now that you've seen both the light and the shadow of your archetype, the question becomes, what do I do with it? You don't get rid of your archetype. You don't fix it. You integrate it. Integration means taking back the parts of yourself you rejected and using your gift consciously. It's the moment you stop being a character in someone else's story and start becoming the storyteller of your own life. How integration looks in real life. Let's go back to Sarah the explorer. Before awareness, she kept running away from jobs and relationships, thinking she was unstable. After awareness, she redesigned her life to include movement. She became a remote consultant, helping companies around the world while traveling. Same archetype, but now she's using it, not being used by it. Another example, Anna, the lover. When she didn't understand her archetype, she fell into toxic relationships, lost herself. After awareness, she became a therapist specializing in relationships. She still channels emotion, but now it heals instead of destroying. That's how you rewrite the script, not by becoming a different person, but by becoming a conscious version of who you've always been. How to start integrating. Simple practices. Here are a few simple steps anyone can begin with. Journal the story of your archetype, how it showed up in childhood, when it uplifted you, when it hurt you. Notice your shadow triggers. Pause when something triggers you. Ask, which part of me feels threatened? Create a space where your light side can express itself daily, even in small ways. And most importantly, stop apologizing for who you are. Redirection, not repression. Integration isn't about self-control, it's about self-direction. The same way a river can flood a village or generate electricity. It's still the same water, it just needs a channel. Your archetype is that river. Once you channel it with awareness, it becomes your purpose, your offering, your fuel. Transition to final part, and when that happens, something beautiful unfolds. Life doesn't feel random anymore. You understand why you're here, and you don't just play a role, you write the story. In the final part of this video, I want to leave you with a message of identity and power, a reminder that you are more than any archetype, more than any label. You are the storyteller. 9. Closing vision. You are not one label, you are the storyteller. If you've made it this far, pause and take a deep breath. You've just traveled through some of the deepest layers of human psychology, and more importantly, into the deeper layers of yourself. You are not broken. You're not lost. You've simply been living a story that was written long before you became conscious of it. And now, you're waking up. Maybe you're an explorer who needs freedom like oxygen. Maybe you're a lover who feels everything in color. Maybe you're a sage who can't stop searching for truth, even when it hurts. But remember this, you're not here to become less of who you are. You're here to become more conscious, more whole, more you. The archetype is not your identity. It's just a symbol of the energy you carry, like a character in a cosmic script. But you're the storyteller, the one who decides what meaning that energy will create. And when you begin living consciously, with the light and the shadow both acknowledged, that's when purpose stops feeling like something you chase and starts feeling like something you are. Final invite. So leave me a comment below. Which archetype do you feel might be running your story? Or maybe you've seen a shadow you're ready to face. If this resonated with you, tap subscribe, not for me, but for you. So this journey continues. I'll be making a follow-up video diving into each archetype one by one, with real stories and practices for healing and purpose. And if no one has told you this lately, you're not just a character in someone else's narrative. You are the author, the narrator, the voice. Let the next chapter begin.